So, Star Trek Strange New Worlds first season comes to a close with A Quality of Mercy, which ends pretty much the way the series has been. Almost a Star Trek episode. Maybe a little more than usual, considering what it entailed. It basically is a capstone for how the series began, dealing with Pike's premonition about his ultimate fate. And they take advantage of a classic episode and do an alternate timeline of it. So there's some nods here. Once again, they briefly, probably all too briefly, utilize old classic themes of music from the old show, which I really wish they had done more of in this, but then that's rather minor to a lot of things I wish they would have done with the series set with these characters, but they didn't, and that's to its detriment, and it's unfortunate. This episode is easily a missed opportunity for things they could have done. It's probably too late anyway, but nevertheless, with a better writing team and whatnot, could capitalize on it. But I'll get to that at the end. So the basic premise of this is he's dealing with his fate again. The Enterprise and his girlfriend's ship, which I'm forgetting the name of it, they're sent to deal with this outpost on the neutral zone. And he meets the captain of the base, and turns out his son is one of the people that he's eventually going to save from the accident that ends up scarring him and putting him in that chair. So he kind of has a little bit of a panic attack at meeting the boy, and he goes to his quarters, and there's someone there, and it's a future version of Captain Pike. And he's wearing the red uniform from the movie era, although 25% different. Still have to do that for whatever reason. And so the future him tells him to stop doing what he's intending to do, which Pike has been planning to send letters to these people in an effort to have them avoid being at that I don't know if it was a base or ship or whatever, I can't even remember, where the accident happens, the radiation that he gets exposed to. So there's no one to rescue, so when the accident happens, he's not needed to go in there and save anybody. And so he's fine. And his future self is telling him that's what happened. However, there were severe consequences. And so he has the Klingon Time Stone, which again is just a really stupid thing that STD, all of this is referring you to STD, which is something they never should have done. Again, another thing that a time travel episode could have fixed for them. I mean, the Klingons having time stones and all this sort of stuff, which was another means of time travel and whatnot that they had during their STD is so bad they can't keep track of their own continuity. But they remember this happened for Pike, and if the Klingons had that type of technology, then they could have been doing all kinds of time travel shenanigans with the Federation and would have defeated them a long time ago. So pretty stupid, but whatever. This is what they've done, and so in order for him to get a vision of the future that he would create as a result of those letters, he touches the stone. And he jumps just a few years ahead. In this timeline, he's still captain of the Enterprise long past the time he would have retired. So you're getting into the era that Kirk would have been in command. And they come upon the classic episode Balance of Terror. So they recreate that in this version of it. And so there's, of course, nods to it and this sort of thing. But with more impressive special effects and that sort of stuff. But it's Captain Pike and not Kirk in command. So there he is. Spock is his first officer now. Number one has been found out to be an alien and has been sent off to a camp. And he still has Ortegas and what's her? I forget her name. She's one of the background characters, really. And they're there, and Dr. Mbenga is still the doctor, so McCoy, I guess, never came on board. I don't know. And no Sulu, so you would have thought they would have done that. You do hear Scotty talking, but you don't ever see him. And so they kind of misstepped here and there, but then again, it's an alternate timeline, so whatever. And the trouble begins with the attack from the Romulan ship, but this time there's another starship there, another Federation starship, the Farragut, and it's commanded by Captain Kirk. So you meet the guy who's been cast as Kirk, who apparently will have a more prominent role next season, and so you get an idea of how this guy will do the role. Well, he's no Chris Pine. He would have been adequate, I guess, as a recurring character, that's some other character, but he has nothing of Captain Kirk, and he's really skinny too, and he's just sort of an adequate character to do the role that he has there, but he doesn't have any of the Shatner's charisma or anything. Chris Pine did a much better job of trying to capture that character than this guy did, and that's just the way it is. And it's CW level Star Trek. This is what you get. But the plot plays out more or less. It's interesting to some extent, because I think this whole series has been just to the desecration of Captain Pike. He's a terrible captain. He doesn't have any real command decisions. Really, Ortegas has to do everything. The women of the ship are always having to do everything. This time he doesn't have Lady Khan. She's already left the ship. We meet her briefly. She was on another ship. She was serving on Kirk's ship. And they get rescued because Kirk's ship gets blown up. And all this sort of stuff. And here we have him in a battle, in this reimagined battle with the Romulans. And so they go through the same thing, and this is the first time they see them, and all that sort of stuff. And then they have Ortegas be the bigoted character that was in the original, being suspicious of Spock and stuff. It's brief, but that was interesting that they did that. And there's one good scene where she's getting out of hand, and he finally tells her to stand down. He shouts her down. It's like, it's about damn time. Because they present her as a terrible officer. She doesn't have any discipline whatsoever and flies off the handle. Now, in a stressful situation, maybe she is the one that would do that, but good Lord, she just was like that through the whole show. So you didn't do that character any favors with that kind of nonsense. And certainly not Pike. And so here you have Kirk, who they bring his brother in, and he says, well, Jim, he doesn't like to lose, and sometimes he bends the rules, he's a wild card and all that. So they demonstrate that, where he has all these fancy maneuvers, and he comes up with an idea to bluff the Romulans using robot ships and stuff like that. And Pike's kind of, oh. But ultimately, you're just demonstrating that this guy's a better captain than Pike, which I don't. That's not a good idea. I mean, how did he survive this long? All that sort of stuff. It's just it's kind of stupid. But nevertheless, Kirk's ship gets destroyed. He says, I see you were too reckless and screwed up, but they didn't have any other choice. I mean, the result's the same. They do deal with the Romulan captain has some hesitancy over all of this. Which was not really the case in the show. He was more remorseful about what he was doing, but he did it. He would do it, and there was no questioning of his duty. Here, there is a little more so, and he ends up getting executed by the Romulan fleet and all that sort of stuff. But ultimately, it's just a bad rendition of My Wonderful Life. Or It's a Wonderful Life, rather, I'm sorry. And after all of that, in the end, they managed to escape with Kirk's help and his clever maneuvers and whatnot, but at the price of Spock. Spock gets severely injured, and he basically has the wounds that Pike was supposed to get. and he's in the sick bay, and Nurse Chapel's all upset, and all this sort of thing. But afterwards, he has to sit down with Kirk, and they chew the fat and everything, and then he fades back to his normal time and understands that that's what he does. His future self tells him, yeah, and in every possibility, every time you try to escape your fate, it ends up either hurting Spock or killing him. And it turns out he's the one chance we have for peace with the Romulans, which, of course, was played out in the Next Generation and all that sort of stuff. And so that's why, for Spock, he's got to do it. And they do this business where he and Spock are close and everything, or rather, he says, Spock, you mean a lot to me. You mean a lot to me too, sir. And all this sort of stuff. There's a way to finagle this, because obviously Spock cared about Captain Pike. He saves him to get him to the Telosian world so he doesn't have to live, suffering for the rest of his days. So he goes to live out in a fantasy world because he's trapped in that chair. And Spock risks an awful lot for that. I would have thought that Captain Pike was more of a father figure to Spock because of the age difference and that sort of thing, and a mentor. However, in a Pike series, I don't think Spock should have played that pivotal of a role. He would have been a character on par with the likes of Sulu, Chekhov, and Scotty and stuff like that, whereas number one would have a more prominent role. Instead, that's not what they did at all, because they don't know how to do it, and they kind of wanted Pike to be like Kirk, but they just thought they'd make him silly and funny and thought that was something. And it was to the detriment of the character. I mean, it's only one episode in the cage, but that's clearly not who that man is. Granted, he's in a bad mood in that episode, but still, he's a very by-the-book type guy. He's very strict and disciplined. And that's a tougher character to play and get him to win over the audience, but I think Anson Mount probably could have done it. But, we'll never know now. The missed opportunity here is the time travel shenanigans, and where they could establish that, yes, this is indeed an alternate timeline. And since I thought perhaps Pike would leave the show at the end of this and hand over the command of the Enterprise going to Kirk, but that's not what they did. They kind of left it on a cliffhanger where back in his normal timeline, number one gets arrested for being this alien. And Pike's girlfriend takes her away, so I guess that relationship's over. And they left it like that, and Pike, is vowing to fix this, and that's the end of the season. So Kirk's supposed to show up as a regular, I believe, in the second season. So I guess perhaps they'll play that out where he takes command, and that's probably it. I don't know if they, are getting the views and the payoff to justify another season or not. Maybe they are. Some people are really liking the show. I don't know why. I guess because it just looks more like a Trek show than the others did. Maybe. I don't know. But they missed this opportunity to do that, not only for the purposes of Pike continuing on, perhaps, into a timeline that went differently, and because it looks so different, and it's so very different in how they handle things. I mean, even the Vulcans aren't really the same. They do things that Vulcans don't do, and this sort of thing. And they could have explored that more, to where Pike, instead of meeting his future self, he meets his other self and this sort of thing, and to the realization that that's not his future. He doesn't actually have that accident, and they free themselves from that. But they're too stupid, and they don't have the confidence in their own product. They just keep doing watered down and cheap knockoffs of classics, and ultimately you have to go out on your own, and they just never do. They didn't do it with the Abrams movies, and they're not doing it with this series, which it calls for. It's not really a prequel series because it's too far removed from the original series and all that. And so you would have to declare, well, it's yet another alternate timeline type deal, and things are going to happen differently. But there's just, not only is there no respect for overall Star Trek, they don't really seem to respect their own show. They just sort of, their concepts somewhat are lazy. So I'm sure some people enjoyed the cool nods to Balance of Terror and stuff like that, but that's really not enough. So all in all, in some ways, I guess this was one of the better episodes, despite its flaws, for the overall series. But not by much, and in some ways it ends up being disrespectful of the original show and stuff. So I was surprised to see that, I guess, Pike is returning for the second season. So I thought they were going to write him out at this point. But shouldn't predict something that might work for a storyline for this show, because they appear not to be interested in that sort of thing. So that's it for the first season of Strange New Worlds. Gee, will it get better? I doubt it. And not impressed with this actor playing Kirk. Maybe if he had been cast as someone else, might have been all right. But they cast him as Kirk, and a tough pair of boots to fill, no doubt. But you probably would have been better off not doing it at all, you know. Oh well, there we are. Strange New Worlds.